Hi, this is Cliff Reeves of Reeves Knives. This video is about how to silver solder a brass guard to a knife. And I've been making knives for about 15 years, and in my experience and looking at other knife makers' works and a lot of things I've read in publications, I've discovered that most knife makers do not put guards on their knives. If they're concerned about finger grooves or something like that, they'll have a deep groove here before the ricasso, and you serve that as a kind of a guard, and then the rest of the handle is some type of handle material. But from the outset, when I first started to make knives, the instructions that I read at the time called for, soldering a guard to the knife. And there is some controversy about that, I guess, because of the heat. And you have to heat up the guard, and the blade could get heated, too much heat, and then you can ruin the tempering on the blade, which is all true. But I've been practicing this for a number of years, and I think I've gotten it down where the time that I spend actually doing the soldering is minimum. And I'll demonstrate how to do that. I go back to what I learned from, I believe, are two classic knife makers in my opinion. First one is Bob Loveless. This is the first book I ever read on how to make knives. It's the best book I've ever read on making knives, and he talks about this, discusses that, gives photographs and instructions on how to, and he calls it soldering the guard to the blade. And the second source is Ed Fowler. Ed Fowler is a writer for Knife Talk in Blade Magazine. This goes back to August of 2008, whereby he talks about how to silver solder the guard blade joint. Now, he calls it silver solder. I've had some comments from viewers that have seen my first video on this saying that, well, you're not really silver soldering because you'd have to get it a lot hotter. Well, I use a solder that has tin in it and a silver content, and I am soldering the guard to the blade. So in my mind, it's called silver soldering. But here's a couple of designs. This knife here, I've sold more knives of this design than any other. Notice how long the guard extends down. Plenty of protection of the fingers when you're using the knife. You can even use it like this. But anyways, use it like the fingers cannot slide down the blade and cut your fingers. It's a very robust style guard. I would say this is the Ed Fowler design. I give him full credit for this idea, extending that way, way down like that. I also made a lot of Loveless style knives, and I give Bob Loveless credit for this design. Notice how the guard does not come down that far, it only comes down about 1/4 of an inch. Yes, it does guard your fingers, but not quite as much. But it's a classic design. Both these knives, I silver soldered the guard. They got set pins in there to make a good joint. This is a blade that I recently ground, and I filed out and cut out the slot there for the guard to fit on there, and then it's pinned. There's pins going through here, and that's pinned down to give it a real tight fit. So in filing that, it takes a lot of time to file that notch in there. But looking at it in the light, you don't want it. You want a minimum amount of space between the brass and the steel. Get as tight as you can. Hammering and pinning pins in there kind of helps that process. So I'm going to show you how I heat this up. Heat each side out in my shop, and I'll show you how that's done and how to do it quickly and not ruin the temper on the blade. So that's the next step. Watch part 2 where I actually do that. Okay, this is the demonstration on the soldering of the guard on the blade. First off, use Stay Bright. It's a product you can buy from Jan Supply. That gives you the right amount of silver content, tin and silver content, also with this flexing compound that you get with the blade. First thing you do is secure the knife and the blade, point it up, be real careful you don't get your face or eyes next to that. In the background, out of focus right here, is a container of water. I use that to cool the blade real quickly after the joint is soldered. So the first step is you put the flux in there, clean the solder off with flux also. What I did is, I did make this easier, you cut little chunks of solder, probably about 1/4 inch long or so, little bite size. That is a little more, it's easier to place the solder right up against the joint if there's little chunks of it rather than a big long strip. Plenty of solder, put one on the end there. Do this on each side. That solder is working its way down into the metal. Do it on each side. That's good. Get them evenly spaced in there. Got Q-tips set aside here. I'm going to use these Q-tips to get a good bead. When its solder's done, I'm going to rub that on there. It gives you a nice smooth bead. I'm going to start up this torch and see if I can get this going. I wear gloves because I'm going to be touching that bottom of the blade handle. I got the camera zoomed in close so you can see what's happening. But I'm going to also use a MAP gas torch. You can buy them at Home Depot. Get a small flame. You don't want a big flame. You don't need a big flame, just enough to keep it going there. So what I'm going to do is heat it on both sides evenly. I'm going to put the torch to the guard itself. Run it evenly across each side. Run it evenly on each side. Notice that the torch flame is touching the guard only. I find that to be the best method. Try to get even heating on each side. I didn't start the stopwatch on this, but it's probably been about almost 30 seconds now. I'm not putting a flame on the blade, just the guard. I'm going to watch for it to flow. It's starting to bubble. You can see it bubbling there. The flux is bubbling away. It's all dried up now. It'll start to flow any second. Been over a minute probably now. concentrating on the blade part. There's no discoloration of the metal in the blade. That's the first indication you're going to lose your temper. Here it goes. Give it a little help there. I think I got a good joint there. Now, turn the torch off. Get my two kips. Run on each side. Taking the blade off the vise. I'm dipping the blade only in the water, not the guard. You can hear it steaming there. A lot of the ricasso got hot, but not the blade part. That blade now is cooling off. I know it's out of focus, but what I'm doing is keeping the blade part in the water. I'm not dunking the guard into the water. It's too violent of a reaction. It's going to have to do this a while to keep it cool while it cools off. But you can see the good joint on the bottom, both sides. I forgot to run the Q-tip on the bottom. I could have done that too to save myself a little time. One of the reasons why I think knife makers hesitate doing this is they're afraid of heating that blade up. Also, the cleanup. You see, I have to go back and clean up that joint. I have to go back there with filing, sandpaper and clean up that joint there to make it shiny. I have to buff it out. I kept that blade cool. It didn't get that hot. A little discoloration there at the very bottom there, but not much. Pretty good joint. Very good joint. Minimum amount of work to clean that up. Hear that guard? Got the end of the guard hitting that water. Okay, I'm just going to set this down to cool. But that's pretty much it. It's a real good solid joint there. No discoloration on this part of the blade. Maybe this part right here got a little warm. Even when I put it in the water, it kind of, but up here, no, that's okay. It takes a while for that to work up there, so that's it, we're good. I'm ducking the whole thing in there now. Also, you have to wash that. Make sure you wash the flex off. That all has to be washed. Baking soda and water is good for that. You don't want that staying. That's why I have this water here. It's a good thing. So it's all cooled off now. That's it. Thanks for watching.